What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vibes-Based Drafting. It's been a minute. I took a 2-week trip to the Mediterranean. Hopefully, we're not going to be too culture shocked here as we get back into the swing of things with drafts. We're going to hop into a big board and see some of the free agency landing spots, the changes in ADP, and we're going to make a little fun of ourselves, or at least myself, when it comes to some of the takes from last episode. I definitely goofed a little bit with our Joe Mixon take, but very task failed successfully in that regard. Now, am I up on the screen? How do I get myself on the screen with the draft? Yeah, okay, that's one way we could do things. Pardon me while I figure things out here, guys. Ooh, I don't fit in the layout there. So let's see here. Can I make that a little bigger? There we go. Hopefully that works. We're picking from the 103 today. Which layout did I use the last episode? I might have completely goofed it last episode, honestly, and just been talking over a draft. But you guys can see me. Hopefully the board is a good size to be able to see things. And we are off. Picking from the 103, I am very happy to get CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill, whoever's there for us. But talking free agency, okay, let's talk the Falcons since Bijan has been screaming up the first round. I've seen a lot of people celebrating their Bijan bags. For me, Bijan is still RB3 behind Brees. I really don't think that his outlook has changed all that much. So I'm a little surprised to see the Cousins landing spot really causing Bijan to go up the board. If anything, I have concerns about the rushing volume in this offense. Kirk Cousins is going to come in, and oftentimes we see these veteran quarterbacks be high volume passers. Kirk Cousins up over that 35 pass attempts per game mark for each of the last 2 seasons. For me, when I'm looking at projecting out this Falcons offense, I'm trying to be a little cautious. Of course, Minnesota's defense the past few years allowed for some very pass-friendly game scripts. And while Falcons offensive coordinator Zach Robinson is also from the Sean McVay offensive coaching tree, similar to Kevin O'Connell was in Minnesota, I don't think we can expect a one-to-one translation here from O'Connell's offense to what Robinson's going to run, particularly with a defensive head coach in Raheem Morris. So I don't know. I'm a little cautious on the Falcons, other than Drake London. I think that the biggest beneficiary here is going to be London and Pitts, just in terms of the passing efficiency. Yeah. So it's to sum that all up, because I feel like I was all over the place with I'm concerned about the rushing volume, but also I'm concerned about the passing volume. I'm just a little worried, I think, about the fragility of Cousins as a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear in a new offense that should be somewhat familiar, but could be restrained by a defensive head coach. For me, Bijan didn't really move up as much as ADP is indicating. London, I am happy to snap up here at pick 22 if we get the opportunity to do so. And then since DJ Moore is at the top of the queue, let's move on from the Falcons to the Bears, who have acquired Keenan Allen. Now, Keenan Allen is a perpetual volume earner, but he is not the big play alpha X wide receiver that DJ Moore is. So I'm okay with buying the discount here that we're getting on DJ Moore. I do think there is a slight possibility that get to September and Keenan Allen is crushing and DJ Moore is maybe more of a big play streaky option, but that's fine in best ball. So we get Drake London here at 22nd. So we've got a Tyreek Hill, Drake London start in the big board. But yeah, talking DJ Moore, I will queue him up in case we get the chance to take him at 27. Where have all of the running backs gone? So this is one of my first drafts. I did do another draft off camera, but getting used to this cliff in running back ADP where there's this giant gap down to ETN, Jacobs, Henry, White. That's been an adjustment for me. Definitely don't agree with the Saquon steam. It's just hard to get there projections wise. We've got a decision here. We could go Miami double stack. I think I'll go Rashid. I don't have any Rashid in pre-draft best ball, but he's been falling after the Marquise Brown signing. So let's go Rashid. But yeah, this cliff in running back ADP seems to indicate that the market believes that after this 1, 2, 3, 4, this top 8, there's a substantial cliff, and I just don't see the running back landscape that way at all. People are very low on Travis Etienne because of, I'm not sure exactly. I guess a slow down the stretch performance from Etienne is really hurting his stock, but yeah, I projections wise, I don't see Tank Bigsby as a threat at all for volume. I don't see Dearness Johnson as a threat for volume. So we're really looking at a bell cow role for ETN again. And Trevor Lawrence, disappointing as he's been compared to expectations, is still a competent quarterback. And really, when we have an offense with a competent quarterback, my strategy is that we are not necessarily targeting the quarterback. Like the Falcons are another good example of this, where we're not necessarily targeting Kirk Cousins or Trevor Lawrence, but they are competent, functional quarterbacks who can elevate their weapons. And while they are not, fantasy elevators in their own right necessarily, we're getting these guys and London, these ancillary pieces around these offenses where all we really need is competent quarterback play to make those weapons pay off at price right now. Yeah, so like Travis Etienne and Josh Jacobs at the 3-4 turn, generally not a robust RB bro, especially not when it means taking Saquon at the 201. But I just love the Jacobs and Etienne price there. So circling back though to Saquon and the fit in Philadelphia, it's going to be very hard to project the touchdowns for Saquon. It's obviously any situation offensively would be better than what the Giants have been putting together for him the past couple of years, but give me Kelsey. Give me Kelsey. Would love to get Kelsey here. If we could get Kelsey and then Mahomes later, that would be the dream. We're fine to take Keenan. I actually don't mind taking Rashad White, last of a tier here for me. Oh, but he goes. We could also do Pacheco. I don't know. Pacheco's been falling for some reason. I guess people like to meme that he's a lot of motion for very little production. Let's do Pacheco, and we'll hope Mahomes is there at 51. That's our plan. Plating. We're gonna get our Kansas City onslaught, try and get as many of those KC touchdowns as possible. Patrick Mahomes, perennial threat to go 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. Perfectly fine with taking him in the 5th round. I think that's a great discount from last year, especially with the additions of Marquise Brown and Rashee Rice breaking out. Yeah, we're going to take Mahomes here easily. Sorry, this is Truffle, everybody. So Truffle's joining the stream or the video as we're not live, but yeah, he's our little bobcat. Anyways, yeah, so Saquon Barkley fit with the Eagles. It's all right. It's better than the Giants, I think, just generally. But I'm not super excited about the touchdown upside. I'm a little worried about the receiving upside. So we'll see. I do expect that Saquon will consolidate touches a little bit more than Philadelphia running backs previously have. When you look at DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders, Swift had about a 70% rush share among the running backs, and Sanders had about 65%. So I do expect that Saquon will consolidate that backfield a lot more, especially if they don't add to Kenny Gainwell in terms of depth behind him. But otherwise, I think Saquon's an okay pick in the late second where he was going, but where he's risen to, I think he will probably end up being a pretty big fade for me. And then thinking about other free agent landing spots, Josh Jacobs in Green Bay is all right, is a decent spot. I'm a little worried that they bring back AJ Dillon for some reason to maybe split carries with Jacobs. Maybe they saw how ineffective Jacobs was last year in a workhorse role again, or maybe it was just a Josh Jacobs wanted to get the bag and mailed it in last year. I don't know. Yeah, Jacobs, low end RB1. Again, I don't think the 2-round ADP gap or round and a half ADP gap between that top 8 and the remaining running backs is justified. Derrick Henry, I love the landing spot for him. So it contrasts between Derrick Henry landing in Baltimore and Saquon Barkley landing in Philadelphia. We have Henry, who we didn't expect to catch passes anyways, so Lamar not throwing to running backs isn't really a concern. And the Ravens also historically haven't really used Lamar around the goal line for one reason or another, whether Lamar just doesn't want to do that, whether he's certainly not built as densely as Jalen Hurts, whereas the push vulture is a very real concern for Saquon's TD upside. Henry, not as much. Now, Henry, of course, has age and all these other concerns, but I am not as concerned for Henry relative to Saquon as just in terms of their situation. Getting here to pick 70, it's a good spot to get Marquise Brown, currently wide receiver 40 by ADP. I think there's plenty of meat left on that bone. We could see Marquise Brown continue to rise. I have him inside my top 30 wide receivers right now. I don't think he's going to surpass Rashee Rice as the wide receiver 1. But I do think that Marquise Brown is one of those guys who can consolidate targets, who functions better as a short to intermediate threat, can be a volume earner, just hasn't played in a lot of high volume offenses. And unfortunately, due to injuries, we didn't get to see him live up to his full potential while playing with Kyler Murray in Arizona. We've got a Kansas City onslaught going here with Mahomes, Pacheco, Rice, and Brown. So very happy with that, with our big board entry here. Thinking then about who we might want here on the comeback. Godwin strikes my fancy a little bit. Are we facing any other tier breaks in my rankings? No, I think Godwin is the pick. We're going hero RB with Pacheco. Got 5 wide receivers through the first 7 rounds, so maybe we can cool it. We'll see what the tight end situation is looking like at our next pick. But something I touched on earlier was I was big into Joe Mixon at cost and big fading Chase Brown because I didn't think that the Bengals would, in fact, cut Joe Mixon. Surprise, they did. You can't know everything. That was a case where I just faded the annual Joe Mixon is a cut candidate report, and 2 out of 3 years of being right on that isn't bad. But Joe Mixon landing with the Texans, fine. It's a good landing spot. I don't think Joe Mixon is a very talented running back, which I can project him for 300 touches, competing with current kick returner Dameon Pierce for touches. But I think they will add someone. It's just a question of how much capital they put into their backfield, or if there's something that Joe Mixon says or does in front of coaches that just forces them to give him the ball. I don't know. It's one of the more baffling cases of being very poor in yards after contact per attempt, in elusiveness rating, in missed tackles force, in yards per route run, all of these efficiency metrics that people seem to like to look at for running backs. People much more in the weeds on what stats matter than I am. Joe Mixon continues to get volume, so we'll see. I do think he's a pretty good value where he's going in drafts right now. Just for correlation reasons, I wanted to lock down Marquise Brown in this draft. Okay, coming up on pick 94 here, Kyler Murray still on the board. We can backstack some Kyler if needed. Normally, I don't like to overinvest in quarterback, but it is the position that scores the most points. And Patrick Mahomes is okay. There we go. We talked him off the board. Don't make that decision. So tight ends, David Njoku had a very strong finish to last year, but for me, I don't see Jake Ferguson as a particularly high ceiling investment at tight end in terms of his season-long outcomes. I don't think he's going to be likely a top 5 tight end. That may just not even be in his range of outcomes. But as we think about how we just maximize our scoring output, I do think that the Dallas offense has spike week potential. Dak Prescott, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he is really, truly right up there with the top 7 or 8 guys when you think about Burrow and not the Mahomes Allen types, but the functional pocket passers who not only elevate their teammates but also can elevate for fantasy. I think Dak is in that category still. So I'm pretty high on Jake Ferguson for that reason. He just projects super well. Cowboys didn't really invest all that much back into their defense, so we could be looking at another very pass-heavy type of year for the Cowboys. Brian Robinson, I think, is going to be our pick here. Solid running back too. I don't think Washington is likely to add much, if anything, in the draft at running back. Just too many other offensive needs and defensive. I'm not terribly worried about Austin Eckler. His legs looked dead last year. He was dealing with injury and stuff, but we're definitely big into drafting Cliff Kingsbury's potential goal line back, which right now Brian Robinson projects to be. He can be that James Conner type of pounder who just gets 3 straight halfback dives at the goal line and hopefully punches one in. So now, as we're thinking here, next pick will be at 118. Maybe Tua can come back to us. Would be pretty cool. Xavier Worthy, maybe might. He's so small, guys. Come on. He's fast, like John Ross. That's a thing that people have actually said, and that's crazy to me. If you look at Xavier Worthy, honestly, he profiles much more like turbocharged Marquise Brown, where he's this little dude who runs real fast, but generates a ton of short to intermediate separation whereas he goes, because we're talking about, so, sharp opponents and all that. Nonetheless, so we're thinking here about Kansas City. So we've got AFC West stuff. We've got NFC East stuff with Dallas and Washington. AFC West, NFC South, with the Atlanta and Tampa. Could be thinking Kirk Cousins, even though I talked a whole bunch of FUD about, but his ADP is right around that 123 range. We will see. Happy to take either of Herbert or Caleb. Generally not huge into taking, or we could take Dallas Goedert. Goddard, similar to Ferguson, is not a high ceiling option, really, barring an injury to one of A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. But Goddard goes, cool. So we are 5 picks away. Both Herbert and Caleb still on the board. Okay, Herbert goes. Caleb could/should go. See, the thing is, in my rankings, like I said, I'm very skittish on Kirk Cousins. I have him down at QB 22 right now in my projections. Okay, Cousins goes, so that's fine. That's actually a favor for us. We're pretty okay with that. Caleb Williams falls to 118 here. We're going to take him unstacked, maybe stack him with Kmet on the turn here. But that'll be it for us at quarterback for this draft. Mahomes and Caleb Williams, good luck and God bless. We could go TJ Hawkinson, but the quarterback situation plus the injury, late season injury, I don't know that I want to buy into that. The last of a tier for me at tight end. Troy Franklin is there. I think we just go. Let's try and push it. Actually, I wish Gus Edwards wasn't so high priced, but we'll go Corum on the assumption that maybe he lands with the Chargers, and we've got some kind of correlation going here where we have Chargers, Chiefs. Could happen. Could happen. So yeah, I guess people are very excited that Gus Edwards is going to be the plotting pounder type for the Chargers. I think they almost certainly still draft a running back. So when we're looking at Gus Edwards versus like Chuba Hubbard or Blake Corum or Jonathan Brooks or Jalen Wright, I just don't see a whole lot of ceiling relative to the other running backs in this range. Yeah, I'm glad I got some Gus when he was going in the 180s, and I'll just be happy that my bags are packed. Yeah, Kmet is an interesting case because I feel like Keenan Allen is directly in competition for targets with Kmet, just in terms of the range of their ADOTs. Substantial overlap going on there. It is a bit of a bummer that Keenan Allen is there, but I don't mind Kmet as a reliable red zone threat. Played him with Caleb, and that'll be our stack, and we'll be happy with it. Especially if we can get him to fall all the way to 142. Just keep letting him fall. Katron, 0 tight ends. Ginjaru. I don't know. Don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced, but I guess we could take Gus if he falls, like Shaheed. I do think New Orleans is likely to add at wide receiver, but how likely and how good of receiver they add. Ooh, Ginjaru goes Freiermuth over Kmet. That's an interesting one. Pat had a bit of a down year last year. I forget where he finished. I have him tight end 15. For me, he's a tier below Kmet. I just don't think the Steelers passing offense is set up to be very good. Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, Steelers. Get rid of Kenny Pickett, bring in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Justin Fields' ADP is insane. I don't know why you're drafting the Steelers quarterback 2 at 144th overall. That's pretty Looney Tunes to me. But I think Russ still has something left in the tank. I don't think that. Oh, Katron does not go Kmet, so we've got a shot. We're alive. Yeah, I think Russell Wilson was brought in to be a starter because that's what the team has reported. We'll see how training camp and everything goes, but as far as I'm concerned, it's Russell Wilson's job to lose. Of course, he can certainly lose it. He lost the job to Jarrett Stidham. He lost the job to probably the Broncos accounting department, but we do get Kmet at 142. We will snap that off right away. And now we're in a position where we could maybe even take a flyer on somebody with some upside if there's a faller late at tight end. I do really like a 2693 construction, and we can get Charbonnet here. We can think about Josh Palmer as an option. I know, gross, but they stripped all of the other wide receivers out of Justin Herbert's locker rooms. He's gonna have to throw to somebody, and Josh Palmer has been okay in relief in the past, but I think Charbonnet especially with this hero RB build we have going, 12 picks of ADP value. Yeah, hard to say no to Charbonnet there. Plus, people don't really like Josh Palmer, so maybe he falls. Hopefully, he falls. Ooh, we could get Mooney's going at 158 now. That's interesting. That's very interesting. But continuing on about Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. I think Russ is going to be the guy. He really wasn't that bad in Denver. In a very Carson Wentz wasn't that bad his final year in Indy kind of way, where it's, oh, look at that touchdown to interception ratio, 26-8. That's not bad. But the film guys are saying it's pretty bad, so I don't know. I'll defer to them. Problem is Justin Fields is also really bad. A conditional sixth is not good trade compensation. I made a post on X a while back about quarterbacks who not historically, but throughout recent history, quarterbacks who have been traded after their third year in the league do not have a great track record. We're talking a group where it's like Sam Darnold, Trevor Siemian. Let me get this pulled up real quick because it's not pretty. Nick Foles is the best one, just to give you some reference there. I contemplated that maybe Justin Fields rushing is enough to set him apart. Yeah, Gingeru, brother man. Fields and Freiermuth is certainly a good way to stack if you're just like leaving. If you get points for being on the bench is where I'm going with that. Traded after year 3. So we've got Justin Fields now joins a group of Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, Trevor Siemian, Nick Foles, Blaine Gabbert, Colt McCoy, and Kyle Orton. So that's all of the quarterbacks who have been traded after their third year in the league, who started at least 20 games. The categories where Fields leads this group, he's tied with Sam Darnold for 38 starts. So we have the largest sample of Fields and Darnold in this group through their first 3 years before getting traded. Fields is third to last in pass yards per game. Only Gabbert and Orton were worse. He is second best in completion percentage behind Nick Foles. He is second best in passer rating also behind Nick Foles, but way behind Nick Foles, who had 94.2 compared to Justin Fields at 82.3. Adjusted net yards per attempt, so that's your yards per attempt adjusted for 1.5 points for touchdowns, and then you get negatives for interceptions, and then net yards, meaning minus sacks. And Justin Fields was fourth worst, beating Gabbert, Orton again, as well as Colt McCoy. And in terms of passing success rate, Fields was second worst, beating only Blaine Gabbert. And so you look at this group and you're like, okay, Justin Fields is the only one who has the insane athleticism, the rushing upside. And true as that may be, we have to make a decision here before we keep ranting about Fields. I love me some Pop Douglas. How do I feel about Pop versus Thielen is a question. How do I feel about Pearsall versus Thielen is a question. Yeah, no, I very clearly prefer Pop to. We're pretty set at running back for right now. There are some late values. Maybe it would have been better to take Braylon Allen there and then hope Pop is still around. But Mario Douglas, one of my favorite sleepers from this past year, will queue up Braylon Allen. Hopefully he gets to us at 171. Be super cool if he did. Nice. That's pretty nice. Braylon Allen, very good at being young and large. Supposedly not very good at much else, but young and large is what got A.J. Dillon drafted pretty highly. So we could see Braylon Allen land in Dallas. We could see him land with the Chargers, maybe. Of course, that's wish casting on the best possible landing spots, but I do think that big running back Go Burr is still a pretty viable strategy. or at least it's one that NFL GMs share. So far, we've got a 2-5-6-2 with Patrick Mahomes and Caleb Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Brian Robinson, Blake Corum, Zach Charbonnet, Braylon Allen, and then at wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, Drake London, Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, Demario Douglas. And at tight end, Jake Ferguson and Cole Kmet. Right, Justin Fields. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've said enough. You guys are probably sick of me going on about Justin Fields. TLDR, he's the backup until proven otherwise. Stop drafting him ahead of Deshaun Watson, ahead of Baker Mayfield, ahead of Geno Smith. Geno Smith's another one that people seem to be worried is not going to start, or at least not going to start the whole season. Sam Howell doesn't worry me at all. It would take a catastrophic meltdown from Geno, who still played fine. Ooh, Gingeroo goes Malik Washington. That's a surprisingly sharp pick. Unfortunate. But we could get Khalil Herbert. Hopefully falls. Just keep falling. It would be okay if he fell. That would be a lot of investment at running back through this point in the draft, but I wouldn't be able to turn down the value. Tyler Conklin. A thought. To my thoughts on Atlanta, right, where we have a fragile old quarterback coming in who's going to facilitate and lift up the offense, but there is a lot of risk inherent in, Aaron Rodgers didn't look that great back in 2022, the last time we saw him, but hopefully he could still elevate this offense and support at least three to four competent options between Brees and Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. Good fit there, I think. Okay, so Conklin goes. Interesting. I guess Juwan Johnson is my next tight end that I enjoy, which he is long gone. Yeah, somebody took Juwan Johnson a while ago. That's fine. That's another one. I beat that to death a little bit last time, but we're getting the Packers tight end 1, 70 picks behind the tight end 2. It's fine with me. I'm okay with that. Okay, Khalil Herbert continuing to slide. Okay, he goes. Cool. Keaton Mitchell doesn't really fit this build. The late round wide receivers have flown off the board though. I would have wanted to hope that we could maybe. Yeah, I think maybe we just take a Miles Sanders stab here. NFC South correlation. And call it quits at running back. Okay. So we've really narrowed down our options here. Zach Ertz reunited with Cliff Kingsbury could be an option. Tyler Boyd, very boring option. Could land with the Steelers, could land any number of places. A strong take on Tyler Boyd, but I think that's probably our pick here. Yep, so we're going Boyd. Walker is, I think, like a Jalen Hyatt type. We'll see. We'll see there. Wouldn't hate Trey Palmer if Trey Palmer's the pick at 2, whatever we have, 214. So hopefully Tucker Kraft will make it back to us. If not, we get more NFC East correlation. We're fine with what do we got here so far? Yeah, I think we're fine with this. Got some Miami to New England. We got maybe Pittsburgh to nothing that correlates with Pittsburgh unless we get, I don't know, something random like a Ravens draft Braylon Allen or something. I did have a decision there, interesting maybe to some people, about Keaton Mitchell or Miles Sanders. For me, Sanders and Chuba Hubbard, pretty easy clicks all throughout this pre-draft process, just because Miles Sanders is still making so much money, which indirectly insulates Chuba Hubbard. They have to pay Miles Sanders, and they didn't sign anybody at free agency. They've already decided, it seems, that Chuba is better than Miles Sanders. And so it's, are you going to draft somebody to make Miles Sanders your highly paid RB3? If you're drafting somebody to replace Chuba Hubbard, to me, oh, somebody took Tucker Kraft. Bummer. And somebody took Trey Palmer. That's okay. We could still get Tez Walker or Jalen Hyatt or, honestly, Rondale Moore. Don't hate it. Greg Dortch, actually, I think I strongly prefer Dortch to Rondale. Or nope, just kidding. Just kidding. Check my rankings. I do not. Yeah, no, that's a no go from me. Perry, surprisingly high in my rankings. I don't know. I don't know what the Saints are going to do at wide receiver, man. I don't know if they have plans to do anything in the draft or if stocking up at offensive line and defensive line. I know Cam Jordan is a bazillion years old playing for them still. They've been kicking the salary cap can down the road for so long. Darren Waller fall into basically undrafted territory is pretty tempting. Because if Darren Waller does decide to come back, yeah, he's very old. Yeah, he gets hurt a lot. I don't know. Walker, tell me why not. Some analytically minded team is going to look at his yards per route run and his early declare status and say, that's our guy. Maybe it's even the Chiefs. And I'm wish casting here. This is down bad territory. Got our 5 receivers in the first 7 rounds. So we have decent enough firepower to get through here. Unfortunately, it seems the rookie targets that we would have normally wanted to go after. Ooh, beginner's luck, buddy. Tight end 4. Yeah, I don't know about that one, Chief. I do not know about that one. Brendan Rice is purportedly okay. Ray Thrash also purportedly okay. And I think we'd prefer. You know what? Let's just go Rondale. Yeah, let's go Rondale as wide receiver 8 here. In season, this would be a 2.682. I think I'd be pretty satisfied with this as a 2.682. A bit light at wide receiver, but what can you do? Zach Ertz does go, interestingly. Ooh, Dawson Knox. I am a sucker for some more Dawson Knox. We'll do that. We'll make that mistake again, sure. Actually, no, probably we shouldn't. We want Dortch. No, Slayton. Okay. Darius Slayton. He comes up clutch sometimes with random spike weeks that hopefully happen during the fantasy playoffs. No rookies in this wide receiver room feels very uncomfortable. I do not like that at all. But you know what? We'll make up with it. Make up for it with Ben Sinnott. Ben Sinnott, who I believe has one of the higher, if not the highest, RAS relative athletic scores in this draft class at tight end. For those who don't know, RAS is highly correlated to success at the tight end position for fantasy, which, if you think about it, what's a tight end supposed to do in passing situations? They're supposed to be too big for a defensive back, and they're supposed to be too fast for a linebacker. And so when you have these size speed agility freaks, more specifically, because that was the trap that got people to fall for Albert Okuebuno. They saw 6'8", 260 and runs a 4.5, and they were like, oh, good. Turns out, though, you need to be able to turn and change direction to be a good route runner in the NFL. Anyways, Ben Sinnott versus, let's say, Travis Kelce. I'll just compare him to Kelce because that's the mood we're in. That's the vibe. Yeah, so Ben Sinnott, 9.75 RAS. Travis Kelce, 9.54 RAS. Of course, not individually indicative of anything, but the point is we want big tight ends who move fast and can turn and be explosive. And when you look at Ben Sinnott's 3-cone, is in the 97th percentile. Shuttle is in the 88th percentile, and he's doing it at 6'4", 250. His 40-yard dash is in the 84th percentile. Of course, he's not in that sub 4.6 range where we're starting to drool over guys, but I think he'll get decent capital. And yeah, I'm just very happy to take him here as a flyer, as an upside shot. Who knows? Who knows? Nobody knows anything. While we're wrapping up, let's think here. Speed run through any interesting free agency spots that we missed. Gardner Minshew's on the Raiders. Report came out today that there's going to be a competition between him and Aiden O'Connell. I don't know. Aiden O'Connell was pretty bad, so don't think he has much of a shot to compete there. But either way, we're very in on Devontae Adams. You know what? Do we want to do a back-to-back here? We could do a back-to-back. 2 drafts in a row. I don't know. I think this might be it for the episode, actually. We'll take our Ben Sinnott. We'll hope that he lands with the Bengals. He lands with who else needs tight end? Maybe the Rams. Put him with the Rams. That could be fun. Put him maybe with the Commanders. Zach Ertz, Dusty, old. Reunited with Cliff Kingsbury, though, so I don't know. I do generally feel a little nervous about having Caleb Williams as our quarterback, too. Okay, so to recap here, we've got Patrick Mahomes and Caleb Williams at quarterback of this 2-6-9-3 build. We've got Isaiah Pacheco, Brian Robinson Jr., Blake Corum, Zach Charbonnet, Braylon Allen, and Miles Sanders at running back. I think this is a running back room that, I don't know, it could get messy. It could get messy because we don't have a lot of necessarily, legendary upside in here. Charbonnet, if Walker gets injured, could be that guy. Braylon Allen, depends on landing spot and being actually good. Miles Sanders, more just a similar, the reverse bet of the Chuba Hubbard stance I had last year, which was we're not so sure that this starter is that good, but should be a decent split of touches and should be enough to carry us through. Basically just going to be counting on Pacheco and Robinson to be our spike week guys. Maybe Corum if he's on the Chargers and we're just pounding in 28 touchdowns like he did at Michigan. That would be sick. And then wide receiver, we got 9 wide receivers here. Tyreek Hill, Drake London, Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, Mario Douglas, Tyler Boyd, Rondale Moore, and Darius Slayton. We'll see what Rondale Moore's role looks like in Atlanta. It's an interesting wide receiver room they put together there with London, Mooney, and Moore. Rondale Moore is probably close to dust if he isn't totally dust. But yeah, I think Tyreek Hill is just a special guy. Could honestly be the 101. Probably should be the one if we're being, or maybe not ahead of McCaffrey. But I could see it's easy to see where Hill could be the most valuable player in fantasy this year. So I'll probably be a little overweight on him in the first round. But Drake London, I have as a top 10 wide receiver. Where if the volume is standard Kirk Cousins volume, then he's going to smash even harder than that. But we will see. Rashee Rice and Marquise Brown. Pretty sure I got the Kansas City wide receiver 1 on my team. Chris Godwin. We're okay with Godwin. Would have liked to see what he could do without Mike Evans, but 6th round Godwin is fine with me. I guess that's 7th round. And then we talked a little bit about Ferguson and Kmet and how they're capable of producing those 1-week spikes, but they're not one of the elite guys. I really would prefer to have a McBride or a Kelsey, which was on my mind when I went for the pick. I think was Kelsey still available? I don't know. Was Kelsey still available? No. So Kelsey went one pick ahead of me. Fortunate, but I did want to set up the Kansas City thing, and I think we landed it pretty well. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in to listen to me ramble on about best ball drafts. Made it this far. Again, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Fantasy Football Plus Network. And until next time, I'm Jake, and have a good one, guys.